Welcome to Self-Marketing for Freelancers, the Magic Ingredients. Thank you guys for joining us. So what is the magic formula to get yourself noticed? If somebody knows, then I hope that you're in the right session. We'll get more ideas. But we can't really give you a potion with 100% recipe, but we have some ingredients from these experts. So first, I'm Kate Bradley Byers. This is Abigail Boatwright, and we are your moderators today. We co-founded the Freelance Remuda, and so we have a little bit of experience freelancing. And while today's 1 hour session will provide you with tips to get your work noticed or to garner more work, we also want to let you know that we're recording the session for a podcast or a vlog to be used later, so just a warning. We have different ways of marketing ourselves. We can't really say whose method is best, but I do know that I often look at other freelancers and I think, man, maybe I should do that, or maybe I should do that. So hopefully today will give you some insight.
Yeah, and the ways that we market ourselves and the platforms that we use, the methods, they've changed a lot, even just in the last 12 years. The way that we market ourselves is shifting. And so I'm excited to hear what our panelists have to say, because I think using more than one method is probably the best way to go.
So our panelists are going to kick it off with some tips, but please ask questions. We want this to be a collaborative effort and a conversation, not just them sharing their expertise in a one-way road. So first off, here are our panelists.
Yeah, so I'm going to read their bios, which we will get to in some way. We were going to put it on the screen, we're going to do the QR code, but I'll read it to you guys so you know who you are listening to today. First, we have Chris Dickinson, the photographer. He has been published in magazines such as the American Quarter Horse Journal, Cowboys and Indians, Western Horseman, and Working Ranch. His images have breathed life into advertising campaigns for brands like KFC, Choice Hotels, and Virgin Airlines. He has photography retreats that are renowned, but he cultivates a unique niche, capturing authentic Western lifestyle imagery that resonates deeply. And so, with his wife, he lives in Utah, where their shared passion intertwines with their life's work. And you can connect with Chris at CD Photog, and we will get this information to you guys. And then we have Carly Kade. On the end, Carly's an author, a Western author. She writes novels with horse lovers in mind. Her first book, In the Reins, kicked off a 4-book series that has garnered multiple awards. She helps fellow writers start, grow, and expand their author careers as a creativity coach, and she is the host of the Equestrian Author Spotlight podcast. Carly works in corporate marketing in Arizona.
Up next, we have Mackenzie Kimbro, who is an author, a rancher, an influencer, and a media personality. She's a 6th-generation cattle rancher who has turned her love of the Western lifestyle into a business when she published her first book of memories and recipes titled Roots Run Deep, showcasing shades of our Southwestern lifestyle, ranching, rodeo, fashion, cooking, and cowboy culture, which is also a title that she shifted into her own television show on RFD TV. She's a fashionista and an agricultural advocate on social media. She hosts her own live daytime talk show on stage that runs during the NFR and so many other projects. Her work is centered around showcasing the ranching and Western lifestyle she knows, living on her family's ranch outside of Douglas, Arizona. And then we have Ashton Kirkeide, who is also a marketer. She's the owner and mastermind behind Black Horse Marketing Services. She received an equine business degree that led her to corporate marketing before she turned her knowledge to working with equine industry business owners. Today, she creates content strategies and messaging for her clients, as well as provides social media coaching. And she lives and works outside of Phoenix. So we have a great kind of diverse panel. So get your thinking caps on, and as they lead us through these tips, please pepper them with questions. Chris, do you want to start us off?
Sure. Can everybody hear me okay? First one I'd say is this: quotes only work if you do. So we all consume a lot of information every day, and through Instagram, through socials, whatever that is. And sometimes we get we get stuck on one of those quotes, like, I gotta work on my business, not in my business. But if you're not actually doing it, that quote won't work.
Well, I'm not mentally prepared now because sitting next to these people is such an honor. Can y'all hear me okay? We're gonna keep asking you that. I do wanna ask before we all get into this too deep, can I see a show of hands? How many of you are active freelancers, long-term career as a freelancer? And we'll show of hands first for you guys, okay? And then how many are kind of new into the freelancing industries? Awesome, okay.
So I'm kind of unique. So I started a horse magazine, California Riding Magazine, back in '86. Sold it to my competitors. Now I'm an independent contractor for my that owns the magazine. Plus I do outside work in marketing and sales, build websites, coach social media for many of my clients that quarter of the year. So kind of like thinking of shifting to freelancing. So it's been evolving. It's kind of like a blend.
And I think that actually touches on something that's really integral in everything that each one of us can do, and something that I struggle with personally is if people tell you that you have to niche down and only be specific to one thing, please don't listen to them, because that is such an outdated mindset. There is room, and it sounds really cliche for me to say this, but there is truly room for everybody at the table. And if there's not, you can pull up a chair and make the table a little bit bigger, because at the end of the day, social media especially has created such an epically diverse space for people to share content, for people to build community, and for people to have conversations that we were never able to facilitate in previous mediums. I honestly also think that when you're communicating with people on social media, you have to remember you are a person behind the screen, and so are they. And not so much in the sense of if you receive negative feedback, you know, they're just a keyboard warrior or whatever, but more so in the sense that social media is such a great collaborative tool. Don't be afraid to use it. When it comes to communicating and reaching out, if you have an opportunity that you're going after or an idea for a project that you want to pursue and that really is fueling your fire, use social media. Research brands that have something to do with what you want to talk about. Look at what their brand mission is and what the theme is in their content, and listen to that and see if it fits as a potential partnership for you moving forward. There's a lot of ways to get in touch with people now thanks to social media. Instagram, Facebook, of course, the first two that come to mind. LinkedIn is also a great one because we all have to list a job title on there. And contact information. I personally despise emails, and anybody from this conference that has tried to communicate with me via email can attest to that, because it's not the first thing that I respond to. But there are lots of great ways out there to reach out to people. Don't be afraid to utilize them.
That's a great tip. I, on the contrary, love emails, so email me.
Good.
Don't send messages on my social. My first tip would be, even though you are just freelancing, consider yourself a brand. You need to brand yourself for your potential clients. And when I say that, it does take a little bit of time, and you need to take a step back. Look at what your competitors are doing. Look at what your potential clients are doing. And then create a brand that speaks to those potential clients and is unique to what your competitors are doing. That branding exercise, something that vast companies do, you guys can do it too. Create that visual brand. So you want consistency on your social media, on your website. You want to pick colors that are consistent. You want to use those colors across everything so that when people see that, they immediately think of you. It takes a little bit of time and effort, but it is well worth doing.
Okay, that's great. All good advice. I'm taking those of that everywhere. To Chris's point at the beginning, I really want to emphasize marketing can be a black hole, and your job is to do the work that makes you the money. Like, I'm an author, so writing should be my primary focus, but I host the Equestrian Author Spotlight, and the biggest, I ask what's the hardest thing about being an author and what's the best thing about being an author. Almost every author says marketing, but my point to them is you do the writing, you do good work, and then the marketing comes a little easier after that. And then building on your comment about branding yourself, look for ways to talk about yourself that fill you with joy. I don't post all the time. I'm in a lot of places, but I've chosen the channels that make me happy so I can do the things that I like to do that's authentically me. For example, I really like making videos. So I make book trailers for my books and I post them on YouTube, but then it's also content that I can post in other places. I really, again, have really moved towards YouTube. I post my the video of my podcast there so people can see me interacting with the people whom I'm talking to, which is building my YouTube channel. I've done things that are authentically me by creating meet the character videos for my books. So every time I have a new book coming, you get to meet a new round of characters. So it's like an interesting tweak on something that I really enjoy doing. So I spend my time on social, on things I enjoy doing. That makes marketing a little bit easier. And it's also authentically you, right? Like I'll post occasionally. I don't post every day. I don't follow the rules. I do, as a freelancer, it's all about you. Like what makes you you. So I'll share a behind the scenes picture of what my office looks like. And I'll say a little thing about, this is my happy space. If you listen to my podcast or you read my books, this is where the magic happens. I've got my dogs at my feet. I can see my horses out in the pasture. It's sharing who you are authentically and being true to your brand. I'm an author, so I'm not going to post a picture of a taco on my channels, right? So I keep it, and I'm Western, so I keep it within that range. I post my horses, I post about books, I share my videos, and then I created a little unique tagline that is authentically me too. So when I'm happy, I say that my spurs jingle. So you think of little things that people will remember you for that are actually, you know, who you are. So I say, don't waste a ton of time marketing, do the work, and then when you do your marketing, be authentically you, share what makes you special.
I love it. It's bookended by do the work. I feel a theme here.
Can I add something?
Yeah,
please?
yes.
Carly is quickly becoming one of my favorite people. Not following the rules, right? The social media or whatever. But there was a book that was written back in the 40s. It's called How to Write. And a guy wanted to be a staff writer for a newspaper. So he asked one of the editors, how do I become a writer? And the editor said, you apply ask to share.
Yes, 100%. 100%.
Though today, some of the work we can do is on our phone. So right quick, I would like to do a little poll. Please raise your hand if you have a YouTube channel for your work. And Instagram. And keep your hand up for Facebook. Keep your hand up for TikTok. Okay. And who enjoys attending events and marketing in person? Fantastic. So this might give an idea of what kind of folks we have and what self-marketing tips might help. So do we have any questions from the first round of tips? If not, Chris gets to go again.
Okay. All right. Well, I kind of went off script there, and I didn't write this one down, but I felt like that was a really good topic, talking about social media. One of the things that I like to share about social media for me is that I have control over what I post, what I say, and when I do it, and that's it. If I have, I don't know, I think Instagram allows you like 30 hashtags or something, and there's those rules like only use 2 or only use 3 or whatever garbage. I don't listen to that stuff. I don't. If I have 30 opportunities to put my work in 30 buckets, I'm going to take that opportunity all day long. So I'll write what I post. I'll post what I write. And that usually comes about 8 o'clock in the morning after I make my wife and I coffee, and I'm literally just talking about what happened during the day, whether that's a photo tip or something like that, or whether it's something about being a small business owner between my wife Jo and I. I just write from my heart, and it's not a scheduled thing. So
That's awesome.
that's what I would say is only focus on the things that are in your control. And the things that are in your control when it comes to social media is what you post, what you say, and when you do it.
Can I just break in there for a second? Chris, I think when I went to your workshop, you talked to us about how you posted like 3 times a day for a year or something along those lines.
Yeah,
do you still do that, or are you more what moves you daily now?
Okay. 10 years, well, not 10 years ago, maybe 8 or 9 years ago, a dear friend of mine sent me an email, and she said, I wanted to do my first photography workshop, and we got down to like a week before, and I said, how many people do we have signed up? She said 0. I'm like, oh. She said, I would suggest that we cancel that. I'm like, God, that sucks. So, okay, well, nobody's there, so it got canceled. And then a couple days later, she sent me an email, and basically it said this: Chris, I know who you are, but nobody else knows who you are. She says, you have to make a name for yourself out there. And I was so consumed in a different world of photography that I was trying to please other people with my images before even knowing that there was a creative side to it, or pleasing myself in the images that I would create. So I decided, and one of the convergence was in the groups that I was a part of, they said only amateurs post on social media. So I had to make the choice at that point to say, I'm either gonna go off script, right? Rule breakers, thank you, Carly. Rule breakers, and I'm gonna do that. Then after that, it was a matter of, what do I post? What do I say? I had a good volume of Western work underneath me, and I feel like I know photography inside and out, so I'm gonna post that. You can go to YouTube, you can go to Facebook and get that. I'll just post it on my Instagram page. And then from the business side of things, it was a matter of how do we, what does a new business need to do? Whether you're freelance or not, if you're selling socks or buttons or whatever, you have to saturate the market, no matter what. So how do I saturate the market? It was posting 3 times a day for the first year, morning, afternoon, and evening. Throughout that first year, I probably missed a total of 2 weeks, not consecutively, but somewhere in there, going on trips. And in that first year, I grew 10,000 followers. Second year, I did the same thing. So in other words, to me, it was, if you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you always got. So I did the same thing 3 times, got another 10,000 followers off of that. And I hate to sit up here and like, oh, you got this many followers, you got that many followers. People look at your followers like it's a form of currency. And while I don't like that for myself, because it's just not fundamental to who I am. The third year, I dropped back to 1 post a day. Will I get the same thing? Yes, I would. And that was about me trying to measure my velocity in posting, and not the analytics side, but the engagement side. Sorry to apologize for taking up.
I like what you said there too, like writing what you know, right? Like you're sharing your knowledge, writing from your heart what you know. You're not trying to be anyone else. You're writing what you know and sharing that with other people. And then I also think if you do good work when you're marketing and you start establishing yourself, it doesn't become, it's a lot at the beginning. You have to be there, you have to keep it going when people don't know who you are. So I think what you did is perfect. But then once you establish yourself, you're good to your followers, you are good to people, you start making a community around yourself of other people who support you. It doesn't become such a pressing monster obligation, which I think is important to mention.
And I'm going to just kind of piggyback off of that as well. Building community and building trust are 2 of the highest arching pillars, in my opinion, that anybody in any career should be focused on. Building trust with whether it's your people who are following along with what you're doing on social media, or it's potential employers, or it's potential media publications that you want to work for, any realm of that. The way that you brand yourself, as you mentioned earlier, is one way to build trust. The way that you engage and interact, not just put yourself out there all the time like, here's all my work and here's me all the time. I really like what you said. When you write your captions, it's from your heart. People can see, like I mentioned earlier, there's a person behind that screen, and that in turn builds you a community. And when you have that community, you would be surprised the connections that come from it. I've heard from people that have been in the media industry well over 30, 40 years, and they will tell you the same thing that somebody that's only been in it 1 or 2 years is your trust, the people that can trust you and your reputation and how you put yourself out into the world is critical, because if people trust who you are as a person, that means a lot more, and it usually weights a lot more than posting a pretty picture on Instagram and saying, well, here's this one thing that I have spent hours on, and we have all spent hours on everything that we've ever posted, I'm sure. But when it comes to somebody meeting you in person or working with you or reaching out to even have a conversation, if that isn't reflective of who you are as a person, it goes out the window right there. Cannot be trusted. If it comes to sales, they're not going to buy from you. If it comes to you pitching them for a job, they're not going to hire you. If you want to put a magazine article together, they're not going to put it in their issue because they didn't like that you were inconsistent with who you were as a person. You broke their trust. So biggest tip would just be the consistency in who you are and what you do in your work is how you're going to build trust and in the end get your opportunities.
Overarching themes, folks. Be consistent, be reliable, be trustworthy, do the work. Piggybacking right off the same thing, social networking is one of the fastest ways to grow your business. Creating that community, reaching out and collaborating with your competitors, which not everybody loves to do it, but it's a great way to start building. You can offer to write articles with them, you can offer to collaborate on social media with them, and most companies really actually will like to do that with you. It helps you reach their audience, and they get to reach a new audience, and you can start building your clientele, but you can also start building your reliability. Gather your case studies, show people your success stories, and it's really going to start to speak to more and more people. It's one of the fastest ways to grow. You're up again.
I interjected there somewhere in the middle. Piggybacking off of what you just said there, and also what you said, be great with people, be kind to people, be a good listener, be a good partner. I'm taking it back to the writing author community, but as I started with my podcast, I looked for those unique opportunities and looked to fill a niche where there was something missing that I wish I had when I had started on my author journey, which was there's a lot of writing podcasts, tons of them out there, but there weren't any uniquely focused on the equestrian industry. So talking with people who write about horses, because people who don't write about horses, they can write about them, but they put the halter on backwards, or they have the wrong tack, and they're not wearing the clothes and the lingo, and they don't get the words right.
That happened?
Oh yeah. have you watched a movie lately? A horse movie? We need a whole group of horse movie people get in here. But so it's a different kind of language, and there's tips and tricks that community uses. That would have been a value to me when I was starting out. So I've built partnerships by collaborating with people in spotlighting others and sharing their stories and what makes them authentically them. And then I put this podcast out, which helps educate other people. So it's like marketing, but it's more like helping others, and at the same time helping myself, because I'm learning more and more and more to build my craft as well. And I'm building relationship with people, because from the community I've built, my little tagline is Authors Unite, but from that community of authors that I've built comes collaborations. Like we put together fun promotions that all of us share across social media. I put together a special podcast episode once around the holidays, where all the authors who had come on the podcast shared like a 3-minute best Christmas story or best holiday story ever. And I put them all together, sliced them, diced them, made it a podcast episode, and then we had a big giveaway around behind it where horse books make great gifts is what we called it. And then I sliced up that podcast. So again, this is repurposing content, right? I sliced up the podcast video and I gave each author their little clip with their favorite holiday story for them to use in their promotion around joining the giveaway. And then we had a fun little quiz that was attached to it. So big, cool ideas come from partnerships with other people, and like what, again, is that unique angle, like what's not in the space that maybe I can create that helps me market, but also helps me build my tribe. Or herd. I should use the horse word.
Yes. Okay, so I have a question to interject, and maybe one of you guys will address this later, but something I struggle with as a freelancer marketing myself is my audience on social media my client, which is a magazine or a content buyer, or is it like horse people in general, or is it both? And so I would love to hear from you guys, like how you balance that, because I struggle with that a lot.
For me, I feel like it's both. A lot of my work, I look directly at Tim, but I do a lot of assignment work for Quarter Horse, from covers to spreads to whatever. Western Horsemen or Cowboys and Indians. For me, it's both. But a lot of the personal work that I post, and I'll give you just a recent example. Back in January, Cowboys and Indians had me down to LA to photograph Ryan Bingham. The editor called me up and she said, "Hey, you know those pictures that you posted of yourself smoking a cigar?" I said, "Yeah." She said, "I want the same thing with Ryan Bingham." I said, "Okay, no problem." So off I went, and you get the cover and you get however many pages inside with the story. Some of the things that I do with my social media, I do post my own personal work, not just the work that gets published, and I have to create every day. That is a thing that I have to do. Once you create, you get to sleep late, act weird, and call yourself an artist. But from the business, from the business side of things, though, I can't always rely on Instagram. While Instagram exclusively fills my photography retreats, there's no question about that. But I can't rely on Instagram to be around. There's times that it's gone down. You can't get in there. So I make a call out to my audience. Hey, if you send me your email address, I'll put you on my retreat list. And those that are on my retreat list have the first opportunity to sign up for my retreats. Now, 90% of the time, those retreats are sold out before they even go public. And that's taken time to build. But that's one of the ways that I use my social media to not only, to have something sticky from the customer, that I can communicate with you outside of a platform that I don't have control over.
Smart.
Own your audience.
For sure.
One of the concepts that might go along with that, I'm not entirely sure how it would be perceived in different sections of the industry. Part of my job is very interesting in the sense, and please hold your tomatoes, don't throw them at me when I tell you this. Part of one of my job titles is quote unquote being an influencer. And that puts a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths because stereotypically, influencers get a bad name, bad rap for just constantly self-promoting and, not being super relatable and just pushing sales all the time. When it comes to social media, if you're looking at your audience, ideally as an influencer, the big part of your audience is a consumer at the end of the day, right? But if you're looking at it from the perspective of, this is also a place for me to build my portfolio. This is a place to showcase my skill, like Chris said. He has a picture that's really well known. That's what they asked you to recreate with Ryan Bingham. They would have probably seen it elsewhere because it's Chris Dickinson, come on. But realistically, you can leverage social media to be your portfolio. I think one of the biggest tips that I got when I was first starting out and really considering being a business person in the Western fashion and lifestyle industry is that you need to have some kind of show of work at the ready. Social media gives you a solid platform to do that because whatever you're putting out there is going to live there. I know I personally have looked at other people's social medias. If I'm asked for a recommendation on someone, one scroll tells me everything I need to know. It tells me the quality of work that they're capable of producing. It tells me what their core values look like, and it tells me who they are behind the camera based on what I talked about earlier. Are they being authentic in what they're posting, or are they just doing it for the likes and the comments?
Yeah, great.
Thank you.
So I'm gonna add a little controversy.
Keep holding the tomatoes. Keep holding the tomatoes.
No tomatoes. If you're a freelancer, you do not have to be on social media.
That's true.
You don't have to. So you can use social media as a wonderful way to build your community, as a visual portfolio, as a great way to reach an audience. It's a very vast world. However, if that's not your area of expertise and you have no interest in being on social media, that audience is going to read that. So instead of spending a ton of time in your social media, if you're not really into that, pick a different route. It could be in-person networking. It could be reaching out to publications or to websites or whatever your potential clientele would be. Spend your time, Carly mentioned this, spend your time on what you love to do. And if social media isn't it, don't do it. It's not a must.
I
I
agree.
quit today.
That's a great point. I mean, there's different routes that you can take to do this, and it's the same with authors, right? A lot of authors don't want to be on social media or do the digital thing. Most of us are introverts, actually, and like, but we want to hide out and just write, right? So there's other ways to do this through building a network, through in-person, through events like this. But to the point of doing the work, if you're a freelancer who writes for a magazine, if you write great articles and you contact the right magazines, you will become known by the readers of your work through those magazines, and then those magazines will know that people like your work, so then the work keeps coming. So if you're doing the good work and you're writing great articles and you're establishing yourself as someone to go to who creates great content, well, you know, it's all about being authentic, building trust, and, you know, doing what you love and doing it well.
And your work is speaking
For you.
It's helping you market yourself.
Yeah.
Yes. That's awesome. Do you guys have any questions or comments to share based on that?
Yeah.
Yes.
I kind of do, if we can backpedal a little bit to when you were talking about posting your photography 3 times a day initially to get known. I think photography, I would totally be happy, like if I followed you, which I will after this, to see horses in nature and all that, and the Western lifestyle, and same thing with Shelley's photography too. With people that write, do you feel like that's a different aspect? Because there's a few people when my book came out that followed me, so I followed them back. And they post like 3 times a day. And now, like when I see it, I don't even stop and look at it because it's too much. Do you feel like with written, like separate from photography, because I do think that's different. Do you think there's such a thing as posting too much like that? Because I know I feel that way. So I'm trying to like tread that line, because I was sort of not anti-social media before, but I was just not drawn to it, and like everyone else busy and just, you know, that kind of thing. And I really see the positive side of it, but it's hard to fit it in to make it like a consistent, even close to daily thing. And like I feel really guilty sometimes because somebody sent a nice message and it'll be like, I'll look, it'll be like 5 days ago or something. So I'm trying to find that balance between not being available, but do you, people that have this more in your life, feel that there's such a thing as doing that too much?
I think it's an intriguing question. Thanks for asking it. My own personal opinion on this, without any statistical evidence to support it, our attention spans are going down. There are, right?
You think?
What did I just say? How can you remember? What was the question? Yeah, what? We talked about it in the first session. You know, Tim and I were sitting up front, and one of the first things, I think it's Rihanna that said, you know, you have somebody's attention span for like 10 minutes. And that's no more true as you talk about writing. I have found myself over the years condensing stuff down, even from the way, I don't know where Carly went, even the way that I write it. From, okay, here's a photography tip, blah, blah, blah. And then I'll go underneath that, block 1, 2, 3. And try and create something very simple and concise for those that will consume. I'm certain there are more people that go on my page that just look at the image and move on, that's fine. But it's not those people that I necessarily want to connect with either. It's the people that do go in and do consume also the written word that I put in there. And I would say from the business side of things, that has always been true. There is a clear commerce between images and words, and there have been for generations, you know, since printed press has come out. I think we need more orators.
I also just have one thing to add to that from the side of really hitting myself over the head with all of the social media classes that I could possibly take over the last 7 years and breaking the rules even after hearing all of them. If social media is constantly telling you, you need to post more because that makes your engagement higher and da-da-da-da-da and whatever, the goal of the social media company that's teaching you that is to get you to use their app. That is not to help your individual business. They're not looking out for you, they're looking out for them. So if we look at attention spans, you're right, it's 10 minutes tops. Now on social media, it's half a second sometimes. You pick up your phone, quick scroll, oh, okay, cool, I just saw 15 people's posts, do I remember them? Maybe, maybe not. If there was an iconic image, probably. If there was a graphic that had nothing to do with what I was thinking about that day, it's gone in passing. I would say when it's relevant to your brand specifically, especially as, you know, authors, people in publications versus people in massive like retail sales empires, they are gonna need to post more frequently because they're moving a lot of different products all the time. That is their goal. You can focus more on building a community, having people get to know you. You don't have to do that by pushing that constantly, and that means you don't have to post all the time. An end goal also for you could be building conversation with people, and that goes back to the building trust. You post what you want, and I think there is so much as posting too many things, because at the end of the day, if you go for quality over quantity, that resonates with people, they like you for that, and that works too. My opinion. You can all disagree with that. Okay.
No, that's great. And I was just
what
thinking,
they said earlier in the Kimes discussion also, like the engagement, even when the analytics are looking at it, it's the shares or the comments, and if you reply back versus just somebody that maybe goes through and just likes several. So if you have a couple of loyal readers, right, that actually engage with you, that would probably be more beneficial to the overall bottom line and your goal than just 150 people that just tap that heart on Instagram, right?
and also you're doing a great job, because I know you went from 0 to being there, so I think you're doing a great
Thank
job.
you.
I follow you.
I had to join Chris with the Carly fan club because I was brand new at all that, and there was a couple of things we met from being on the podcast, but also there was some little tips that she just threw out there, and they helped me so much. Somebody went to take a picture of us, and she said, "Where's your book?" And I was like,
Yep.
"You always have your book with you." So from that moment on, I was like in my car and in my purse, so a lot of good tips from her.
Yeah. Being great. I like to be great. People matter to me more than anything else. Like that's what it's all about, being human, right? So we have to remember social is for social.
Yeah.
And don't forget there's like PR, classic PRs out there too, you know, like telling your tale through earned media, you know, like at a place like this, you're meeting people from Horse Illustrated and Western Horseman and all these great magazines. Like when I was first writing my book, I have a PR background, so I guess I'm kind of fortunate, but there's people that will help you, and you can pitch yourself, like if you have a good story to tell with a product and you're new in the space, no one's heard of you before, they'd be interested in doing a profile. So there's still that kind of route also, and then it's like, you know, it's not you marketing yourself, it's like someone telling your story through a channel where they thought you were interesting enough to put you in their magazine or their publication. So, and then there's usually the social media stuff that accompanies that now, but yeah, there's that route too.
I think there's a lot of value in that route also.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's more substantial.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. It's also a little more gratifying in the long run.
Mhm.
When you're building a career, if you're always looking at the end goal of, oh, I want to make this much money and I want to have this many followers or whatever, that's not the end goal.
Mhm.
Having fulfillment along the way is really important, and in getting those friendships and networking opportunities and partnerships put together is more valuable than much of anything else.
You know, you guys have mentioned collaboration and partnership. Raise your hand if you have collaborated with somebody that, like if you're a photographer and you have worked with a writer, or you're a videographer and you've worked with somebody else. Raise your hand if you've collaborated with somebody else on a project. So can you guys talk a little bit about how collaborating with somebody who might be slightly outside of your lane can help broaden your company's horizon or like elevate what your brand can do?
Yeah, the first thing that comes to mind for me is creativity comes from many different places, not just within the Western world or the equine world. I had the opportunity to go to an art directors conference down in Monterey last year, and I was opening programs I've never used in my life. And it's a good reminder that we're all new at something once. And when you're mentoring somebody, for me, it's important to relate back to that. When you're working specifically with different, videographer or something like that, I would say on an anecdotal level, be respectful of their space too, especially videographers. They have their own lane that they're looking at. They're seeing things in moving pictures, right? I'm seeing things in still pictures. But, and the reason I bring that up is because I totally got in the way of a videographer. And, well, he's like, I didn't get the shot.
And he had one chance because it was a once in a lifetime thing. I've heard that too.
Yeah, no, it was a bride coming down the aisle.
Oh, can you just
You're
go
welcome.
back and then we'll just do it all again? That's great, thank you.
Out of fairness, they weren't there for the rehearsal, so, should have been there. We could have worked this out.
You gotta put the work in. You're gonna get a good end result. You gotta be there and be on the ground. I think going into collaborative opportunities, the most important thing to remember is actually going into it for the sake of collaboration. Because I think too many people will reach out, and I take this back specifically to the influencer space just because that's where I've seen it most frequently, but it's relative in all facets of the industry. If you go into a collaboration solely because you want to grow your following, solely because you want to say that you worked with them for the notoriety of, oh, I worked with this brand, and clearly that's the pinnacle of your career, that's going to be the pinnacle because that'll be the last time anybody hires you to do something. But you have to keep that collaborative mindset. This is not we're going to partner together because I want to make me better and I'm going to use you to do that. You've got to be mutually beneficial when you go into it. And I think that'll pay in dividends in the end, and not just monetarily. I mean, opportunities and the final product itself is going to just be a better result if you go into it for the good of the project and not for the good of yourself.
Can I just add something to that really quick? There's a difference between equitable and equal.
That's true.
And when you're looking to collaborate, there's a lot of times that you'll do the trade work, and as long as you both feel like you're getting something equitable out of that, you're good to go. But if one person feels like, hey, you know what, I did more work than you did, and blah, 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 somebody's gonna feel lopsided on that, so.
That can burn a bridge
you
pretty
should get-
fast.
should get-
Yeah.
Thank you.
I love collaborating on projects because the more people you have involved, the more creative the end result is. But I always go in with a learning mindset. I'm working with somebody else that is an expert in their area. I don't know anything about their area. There is something I can learn here.
Yep.
Even if it is something as simple as the way they're communicating or their project management style, even if it's not particular to their area of expertise, I always want to learn something. I always want to take something away and say, I learned this from this project. So that's always been very helpful in my collaborations.
All awesome points. I'm trying to think, like, to the point of being a good human, like, let's not forget our, like, how we're pitching people for collaborations. I really think the best way to get to a collaboration is relationship building, often at events like this or in-person opportunities. But let's remember our manners, right? Like I host a podcast where I spotlight other authors. I don't charge anything. I'm not making any money on it. It takes me a long time to do, from interview to editing to publishing and promoting. So it's like, and I'm doing it because I like to, and I want to be great with people. But sometimes the way I'm approached is like, I'm kind of shocked. I'm like, wow, like, I'm open to anybody. I don't exclude anyone, but it's like, think about, watch an episode, right? Like, get to know a little bit about who I am and how my interviews go and the kind of questions I ask. Give me some information up front about where I can find your book, or what you're up to. Give me some of your social handles and your website. And then I tell you up front, I record these in advance. It's going to be a minute before they come out. I will be in touch when your episode is ready. But there are some authors, and I think it's just like forgetting the etiquette or not understanding the adequate etiquette, that will send me an email every week after an interview over and over, when's my episode coming, when's my episode coming, and then never say thank you or share it when it actually debuts. And like, that's the kind of thing that it's like, mind our manners, be good humans, give people the information they need to make good decisions. Say thank you, you know, and just be grateful for our collaboration. Like, you know, be kind in the conversation. So I think that it's an important thing to remember. And I know a lot of it is just out of not knowing, but if you don't know how to pitch someone, do the research, find out who they are, educate yourself, and then reach out.
I was going to add to that. So if you've ever had someone pitch a collaboration to you, you can see within the first 3 lines if they've done any research on you, your company, or any of your clients. So I've gotten lots and lots of pitches, and I can tell you the ones that have done the research are the ones that I'm going to reach out and have a conversation
Absolutely.
with.
Spell people's names right.
Spell people's
I
names
can't
right.
believe how many
Spell
people
check.
call me Kade. Like, that is Kade, my last name. Like, hi, Kade.
Five words that like completely shut me down. I stumbled across your profile.
Oh, yeah.
Archive. Yeah.
So we have about 9 minutes left, and I would love to open it up to our audience. If you guys have any questions, raise your hand, and then if you guys want to repeat the question for our recording purposes, that would be great.
Are any of you doing paid advertising on social media, and if so, have you found that to be useful? Like paid ads, paid promotions?
So I personally did not work in the paid space, but I work closely with another company that does. They specifically target Instagram and Facebook, and they've had some really good results specifically in the industry. I will say it's a challenging space, and you can throw a lot of money at it with no results. So honestly, my best advice is find someone that has gotten good results, read their case studies, and make a decision whether to move forward with it or not.
Should I repeat the question though, just
Oh,
so I'm
sorry.
on the
Sure.
recording? The
Sure.
question was, are any of you using paid advertising on social media? Okay. Thank you.
Shelley, do you mean just exclusively, you know, boost a post, that kind of thing, or working with brands and collaborating that way and posting on behalf of them?
No, I developed an app, and I would like to, because it's more of a product, I'd like to reach beyond my audience and target people who have an interest in horses and
Got it.
photography.
Yep.
Yeah.
Got it.
Paid advertisement would be a great fit for that product.
I might ask you later who you work with for that.
She's fantastic.
I've never, as far as my social media goes, I've never worked in the paid space like that, where somebody says, hey, we're gonna pay you $500 to post, or, you know, something like that. The closest thing I've come to that is doing work on an Amish ranch on the border of Colorado and New Mexico, of all things, with an auction, a horse auction, and they said, I heard from somebody that you have a good social media account. Would you be willing to post on there? I'm like, nobody's ever asked me that, but the Amish did.
That's really interesting.
Yeah, I know. They
Do
give
we
their
have
news
any
on the
other
fact sheet.
questions? Yes.
From a legal and an etiquette standpoint, how do you post on your page with work that you've done for someone else? For example, images that you've taken for an event or for a company marketing?
Can I address that first, if you don't mind? Yeah, that's this is so good to address. Any work that I do commercially, I would say this, it'll be a death blow if you go out and you start posting the stuff that you took without it being published first. And while that's, I would say that that's professional courtesy, there are organizations, there are publications out there that'll tie you up into NDAs to bind you from that. And that's not uncommon in the industry either, that you will be locked up for maybe 2 years or 6 months or something like that. But in any of those cases, I keep poking at Tim because I do a lot of work with Tim, and it's not, if I were to take those images and post them before he published the article, God, that is just one of those things that you just don't do. You don't go out to a ranch and you say, how many acres do you have here? How many cows do you run? You don't do that.
I would add that, being from the client side of things, and I freelance over the years, I don't anymore, but the words that you guys are saying, authenticity, relationships, super important, and those things lead to trust.
Yeah.
Because I can trust Chris to go anywhere, but they're gonna love it.
Yeah, that's such a, God, it was such a good question. Thank you for asking.
Yeah.
I'll add something too, is at the beginning of a job, sometimes I will ask what their wishes are. So I know up front, like, do you want me to hold these images, or are you okay with me sharing about the shoot? And then, because some clients are like, oh, that's completely fine, we don't mind, it's good publicity, whatever. So asking up front can often make sure everything's clear between both parties.
And contractually, to having been on the other side, like having author photos taken, Shelley has taken beautiful pictures of me, asking permission to share those things and that building into a contract. Like the first time out, when I worked with, it's like do your research, educate yourself. I always say educate yourself on everything, read the books, talk to other people. But if you work with a lawyer and you have a contract, you can build things into one way or the other. Like, can I have full rights to use these? I want to post them everywhere I can. Can I own the photo? Like those kind of conversations. It's like you can build it in, so you have more flexibility, but you have to ask the question in front. So and make sure you protect yourself and they protect themselves.
Always, I would add, in those agreements, outside of an NDA, non-disclosure agreement, always do your best to reserve your right to self-promotion. As a freelancer, this is our lifeblood.
Yeah.
This is how we make a living. And I completely recognize that we have a production schedule and all that, and I'm not gonna do anything until it's published, but always do your best to reserve the right to self-promotion.
And generally, when you present that to a client,
Yeah.
they're very willing for you to share it. Obviously, once something's been published, but if you just let them know, I'd like to include this in my portfolio, I'd like to include this on my social media, they're generally very open to do that.
We have, I saw you with your hand up, and I promise that we'll get to that. Images have value, and they devalue the second they're posted. So don't forget that from the client side of things.
But you can also, have the right to self-promote. Like Abigail's great when she goes somewhere, she'll do a story. Shelley, has posted on her stories, not of her images, but that she was at this place taking these photos. So it's a way of showing that you're doing the work also when you're doing some behind the scenes type stuff. And that's something that I've had to kind of remember to do, is behind the scenes. Mackenzie was great. She's like, hold on, I have to set up my tripod for some behind the scenes. I'm like, not of me. I'm wearing rainbow tennis shoes because I just got here from the airport. But there's a way to self-promote at the time of what you're doing, and then hold the end product until if it's a printed item or it's published digitally or whatever else. So it's just kind of have to be more thought process involved with that. So, and then we had a question.
One more question. Did you have?
No, I was just gonna add, from the sort of editor-publisher's standpoint, if you're talking about something that has been, published in an article, whether you wrote the article or you took the photos, you do not own the final fixed format layout, so you don't automatically have the right to, for example, post that on your portfolio. But I have freelancers, I'm a magazine editor, so I have freelancers ask me on a fairly regular basis if they can get permission to include, a PDF of their story on their website or something like that. And I'll usually say yes, you know, after the magazine comes out. And we'll send them a PDF with the stipulation that they approve the copyright notice and link back to us, and they're allowed to publish that. But no, you do not own and would not be able to own the published format, because that entity as a whole is the copyrighted property of the publisher.
Fantastic. Do we have any other questions? Well, we have run right up against noon, and now it's lunchtime. Thank you guys so much. I'm sorry the QR code on your tables did not work, but we do have a link tree with everyone's social media that we're going to post
I
on.
have the QR code right now.
Yes, and if you want to walk up and take a picture of it, that way you can have immediate access to their website. Thank you so much to our panelists, and thanks for coming.
Oh,
It looks like